So let's now have a look at the design sketching part. And as I mentioned, we'll not worry too much about the design when it comes to picking colors and so on. There, I will just provide you some colors I came up with in advance. Instead, here, I now want to focus on sketching out the front end of this application. So how this app should roughly feel, how the pages are connected, what should be visible on the user interface. For that, you can now have a look at my amazing drawing skills. Not, but I hope it will still be helpful. So what do we have in the front end of this application? Well, it all starts with the page we're visiting. And by the way, I'm drawing the desktop view here. We'll also build this application such that it looks and works great on mobile. But here I'm just sketching out the desktop view. So we'll start on some page where we probably want to have a header with some title of our application, so the name of the app, our brand, something like this. And then also some menu items on the other end of our header here. Now I'll come back to these menu items. Let's think about what we see on the starting screen. There, I want to have a list of users. So a couple of list items in the end, which simply are rendered beneath each other, where for every user we have like an image of that user, the name, like Max or menu, and then the number of places of that user. So the number of places that user shared. So maybe here I shared 2 places and menu shared 1 place, let's say. And of course we have more users here. So that's the starting screen. Now, when we tap a user, something should happen. Before we think about that though, let's talk about the menu items I want to have in the header. There, it depends on whether we are authenticated or not. If we are not authenticated, then here in the header, I want to have an authenticate option. Here I'll just name it auth. You could name it login. So basically an option which we can tap to be taken to the authentication screen. If we are authenticated, then here I want to have an option to create a new place. So to be taken to a screen where we can simply, well, create a new place. I also want to have an option which should always be available, and that's basically the users list. So this starting screen here, that should always be available no matter if we are logged in or not. We could also say that this option, when we tap this, is basically also happening if we tap the title, because that is our starting screen of the app. So these 2 options here are basically equivalent, we could say. I think that would be a setup which should generally work. But now let's see what happens when we tap a user here. So when we click our user here, like menu, then I want to be taken to a new page. Now on that new page here, which is loaded, of course we have the same header as before with the title and with our different menu options here. I'm not going to write them out again. These are the same options as you see up there. So instead, let's focus on the main area of this page. What do we see there? Well, menu has 1 place, right? He has 1 place. So here I expect to see that 1 place. If you had more places, then I would expect to see a list of these places here. Now, that place should have an image, and we'll see how exactly we create this. We could have the image at the top here, for example, then the title, and then also options that allow us to interact with that place. For example, we can have a view on map button here. The idea is that when we click this or when we tap on this option, we open up this place or the location of this place in a modal, so in an overlay to the screen, where we can see that place marked with the help of Google Maps. In addition, I want to have 2 other buttons on the right here, an edit and a delete button, which we only see if we are the creator of that place. So that's only visible if creator, so if menu in this case, so if the logged in user who is viewing this screen is also the creator of that place. Otherwise, only the view on map button is visible. Now when we tap that view on map button, as I said, I want to open an overlay which has a map, so which uses Google Maps to display the place on the map with a marker. That's the idea, what should happen when we tap this View on Map button. So this is roughly how that could look like. We might also add a description so that we have the title and description here, but that's my general idea. The idea is not that we can tap this place to be taken to a new screen where we then view all the details, but that we can see all details, or reach them, like in the case of the map, from this screen. But of course, that is something you could build differently. It's just the approach I want to go with here. Okay, so that is our list of places where we can also view place details. We get there from our list of users because every place is mapped to a user. So we have to tap a user first before we can see the places. Now, what about the other buttons we have there? The off button and the new button up there. Well, let's start with the off button. When we press this off button, I of course again want to have my header up there with the same menu options we saw before. But then here I want to have a form where the user has to enter some data, namely the email, the password, and also any other data we might need. For example, also a button which allows us to pick an image and so on. This all should be here. And then we need a button which allows us to log in or also switch the login mode so that we can basically toggle between login mode and sign up mode. And this will also affect what we see up there. So when we're in login mode, we of course only have to enter email and password. If we are in sign up mode, we will also need to provide the image and the name of the user and so on. So that's the authentication form, which we only are able to reach if we are not authenticated yet. Now, what about the use case that we are authenticated? Well, then we can, of course, press this new button here in the menu and go to a new page where we also see the good old header, but where we then can create a new place. And that is very similar to the authentication page with totally different fields, but the idea is the same. Here we have input fields to create a new place, also our image picker for the place, and so on. And then, of course, a button to add that place. That is the general idea here. We simply have a page which allows us to create a new place. Of course, when we tap this add button or when we tap the login button down there, we send a HTTP request to the backend where we will then basically send or attach all the data we picked here in the form. And then on the backend, we can extract that data and create the user, create the place, and so on. Now, creating a new place is one thing. We also have this edit button here, right? So when we tap this, we also want to go to a new screen. And that should be a screen with the good old header we already know. And on that screen, I also want to see a form, a shorter form though, where we can edit some data, specifically the title and let's say the description of a place. Not image and address, but these two fields should be editable here. So we basically have like a shorter form of that create new place form here. We have a, well, shortened form to update title and description. This is what we could have here. Now, when we click the delete button, I want to open up a modal where we have to confirm the choice and basically have a chance to cancel the deletion process in case we click this button accidentally. Well, and that is my beautiful drawing, which basically lays out the front end of this application. Now, I can guarantee you it will look prettier than what I drew here, but this drawing here, this skeleton, which I sketched out here, basically gives us an idea of the flow of our app and how users can navigate through it. It gives us a rough first idea of the pages and components we will need there, and it basically helps us build the right application, the right React application for the app we want to build in the end. So that's my sketch for the front end. Now let's analyze which data we got in our application and which endpoints we need on the back end.